Hi everyone, if we've already met, welcome back to the drawing board, and if you are new here, then a very big welcome. My name's Teresa and I am a colour pencil artist based in Devon in the UK. I've got a lovely project to share with you today where I'm going to take you through adding some colour onto this little chicken. This is my chicken. Her name is Marlene, and the photograph that we're going to use for the project was taken last year after the chickens were able to come out of what we call lockdown in the UK, where they have to be kept under cover at certain times of the year to stay away from the wild birds. I wanted to draw her for my scrapbook, but I thought actually it would create a really nice simple project where we can just concentrate on putting colour down on the paper. So if you are very new to drawing animals and new to colour pencils, it will be a case of we'll go through and we will practice how to lay an even colour and how to build up the colours on the paper. And if you're a seasoned artist and you just want to spend an hour with a cup of tea, just loosening up those pencils, just getting some colour down on the paper, then this is going to be for you as well. So why do I say that it's simple? Well, it's simple because this is the line drawing that I have got over on my free tier of my Patreon channel, and you can go over there and you can download this now, and you can see that for this line drawing I've already put in some of the darker values. So we've already got the structure and the dimension of the chicken, and all we need to do over the next hour or so is to add the colour. So for this project, I'm drawing on hot press paper, but you can draw on any paper that you want to. You can just print your line drawing straight down onto your art paper, no need to trace it. And if your art paper is too thick to go through your printer, you'll see actually in the video as we go on that the version of Marlene that's on the left hand side, that was just printed on printer paper, thin printer paper, and you can use that to add colour if you want to. You can just do it on printer paper because we're not going to put too many layers down. So cheap printer paper will be enough to get some colour and create a nice little colouring page of Marlene. And once you have drawn this little chicken with me, if you're looking for more projects, whether you're a beginner or an advanced artist, you'll find plenty more projects over on my Patreon channel, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. So if you enjoy this project, don't forget to give it a like before you leave, and if you want more projects like this, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and turn the bell on so that every time I release a tutorial, you'll get a notification. And if you haven't already seen that little button under your video that says hype, don't forget to click on that as well if you've enjoyed the project. So really hope that you enjoy this little project. Grab those pencils and let's get started. Okay, I've zoomed the camera in a little bit. I'm just going to bring this one that's on the printer paper back in for a second so that I can just explain that I've not actually got that many pencils for this. This was the whole point of this, that, you know, there aren't that many pencils. You can go with any colours you want. I will put the colour of the pencil on the screen as we're going along with the project, but it really doesn't matter. You don't need to have the colours that I'm using. Just go with the closest that you've got. This is all about having a bit of fun. The pencil strokes that we're going to use for this particular chicken are going to be really basic. It's either going to be a backwards and forwards colouring stroke, keeping the pencil on the paper. So just going backwards and forwards. It's just colouring really. So we're either going to use that one. We may use circular strokes. And I say circular strokes, but I will say circular strokes, but it's more of an oval stroke really. And that is pretty much it. We also will use some pencil strokes that will sort of curve around. So I'm still keeping the pencil on the paper, but we'll curve it around in different directions to just sort of get some movement of these feathers in when we come to the feathers. And it might be that it's much easier to sort of turn that paper to get those movements in. And that's pretty much it. We will layer the pencils, so we want the pencil to always go down with a really light pressure. We want that pencil to go down with a really light pressure. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all we're going to do for for this little hen. That's all we need to worry about, just practicing. And it could be that, you know, it might help you to just get a scrap piece of paper and just practice this pencil stroke first. So we're looking for a really sort of even coverage. If you're struggling to get the coverage even with these backwards and forwards pencil strokes, try this circular pencil stroke. That might help you to get down the pencil a little bit more evenly, and that will definitely work for some areas. But when we get to the feather area, we will come back to this backwards and forwards pencil stroke to just sort of get the movement. So have a bit of a practice on a scrap piece of paper of just getting this movement in a nice even application of the colour. And that's pretty much all we're going to do. So have a practice on a scrap piece of paper if you need to, and when you're ready we'll have a look at putting some colour down onto Marlene. Okay, so the first pencil that I'm going to use is the brown ochre 10%, and it's going to be, I'm just going to bring this one back in so that we can have a look at it on the side here, and it's going to be as simple as just getting this colour pretty much all the way over the chicken. So this is one that I've already drawn. This is the one on the print paper. I'm just going to use this as a guide. We'll just use this as a guide to get some colour down this one. So I'm going to use the brown ochre 10%. I'm going to tip my pencil over a little bit. I don't want to hold it up and colour really tightly. I'm just going to tip the pencil over, and I'm going to get a nice even application of the colour. If I just come back to this little bit of paper, it's just this backwards and forwards pencil stroke. That's all I'm doing. I don't want to make this a solid colour, so you can see that I'm putting an even cover down, but some areas are just a little bit lighter, some areas a little bit darker, and the way that I'm going to do that is to go over some of the areas still with the same pressure, but just go over some of the areas a little bit more, so that I can just start to build in a bit of texture straight away. Now the lovely thing about this chicken, that this chicken has got this collar running through all of her feathers really, apart from a little white bit at the back and a little white bit on the leg and just around here and on the tip of the tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this as a base layer all the way over this chicken. I can go over the printed bit. I can work over those printed lines. It actually sort of, you know, just sort of takes them back a little bit. It knocks them back a little bit, lightens them a little bit. But the pencils will run over those lines. I'm not worried about sort of staying around the printed lines. I've got my pencil tipped over because it actually helps to get quite a quick coverage down. You can see that I'm already starting to build that lovely sort of chisel tip on the end, and it's really useful at getting a nice even coverage down on the paper. The pencils just glide over that paper. So I'm just working backwards and forwards, working around the body. And if you need more time to do this, just feel free to stop the video, maybe watch it get to the end and then just stop the video and add the colour yourself. Just bringing it round. I'm going to go over the darker bits as well. I'm not putting a lot of pressure down. I want there to be lots of tooth left in the paper for me to build those colours up. I am taking the pencil strokes around in the direction that the feathers are going. So around here, for instance, I'm going to work on this. This is those curves that I was saying, where we're going to put the pencil down but in a curved direction, and I'm going to start to curve this around here and also underneath. We're not looking for everything to be absolutely perfect. I don't feel the need to get absolutely everything down on the paper. It's just practicing the pencil stroke, practicing a nice even coverage. And not only is this a nice, little exercise to do with a cup of coffee, but it's also really good practice at getting that even coverage down and just being able to concentrate on just the pencil strokes rather than having to worry about getting the shape, the structure of the hen in, because it's obviously already there. I'm just going to bring this around the back around here. Let's have a look. So I've left that little bit there, left that bit a little bit lighter. And so hopefully when we're applying this colour, hopefully we're getting a nice even coverage. If we're not getting an even coverage, if you're not getting an even coverage for this bit, then perhaps just go back to your paper and have a practice again. Have a practice at getting that even coverage down. I'm holding the pencil quite far back, about halfway back, and that helps me get a nice loose curve on the pencil stroke. This little bit's a bit light around here. Let's just bring this down, and then let's just go up and into this feather on the top as well. Just going to get a little bit of colour on that feather at the top. I don't need to put that everywhere. The other thing that I'm going to do is to take this colour and I'm going to put a little bit in the beak, and a little bit in the beak there. And also this is the ear. This is her ear there. A little bit in there. That will do. And the other thing that I'm going to do is just run a little bit around that eye. So I'm just going to run a little circle. I don't want much to go in there, just a little circle of colour over that eye. There we go. So we've got our base layer down. I won't worry about the legs. I'll do the legs afterwards. But we've got our base layer down on that chicken. If you're ready to move on, I'm going to move on to my light pink colour, which for me is the beige red. And I'm going to put a base layer of this beige red right up in a comb at the top, up here. Again, backwards and forwards colouring strokes, that's all it is. I might just switch to circular strokes just on the edge at the top so I can keep it nice and neat right on the top. And I'm also going to work with circular strokes in her face. So let's just bring this around. Just colour that in. It's getting a little bit, and a little bit under here. So it's a nice light base of colour. There we go, we've got that in there. And then I'm going to move on to my other pinks. Now I'm going to use the coral, which is quite a muted pink, to get some colour in her face. I'm going to use the slightly brighter pink. So let me just grab my my brighter pink. This is the light purple pink for the comb, and bring some darker bits in with the pink carmine. But it doesn't matter, whatever pinks, or you could even use red. You know, I'm making this quite pink, but you could just use red if that's what you'd got. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to use the coral, and I'm going to get a little bit of colour into her face, and I'm just using circular strokes to get some colour into her face. I'm going to bring it around the side of the face, just using circular strokes. Work up and over the top of the eye. So I don't want to put the pink everywhere. I'm just keeping the pink towards the edge of the face a little bit, and still keeping that more of a creamy colour in the middle. Just going to use circular strokes underneath. But any colouring stroke that gives you a nice even coverage will work. It just so happens that the circular strokes and the colouring strokes work for me, but anything that works for you that will give you a nice even coverage. And then here I'm going to just very, very gently curve the pencil around. Just bring that down underneath. We're not looking for anything that is perfect, just something that looks like a chicken, and it will obviously look a little bit more sort of illustrated because we've got all this black on it, but I think that's quite nice. I'm just going to switch to the light pink purple. There we go. So you can see I've just brought a little bit of this brighter pink into this space, and I'm just really letting it very gently come on over, work over into the beak. There we go. I'm just going to come back to this coral because I realised I didn't go around the eye with the pink. So I'm just following the line. It's a really small eye. There's not a lot we can get in there, but I'm just following the line around that eye with the pink. There we go. And then I'm going to move on to this pink carmine, and I'm going to just darken down areas that are a little bit darker. Now, it doesn't matter that the dark bits in there from the pen. I can just let the pencil just run over the top of it. It'll just tint it a little bit. We want the dark to come through, obviously. That's the whole point of putting the pen down first of all. So we want that to come through. Just using tiny little dashes really, just to get a little bit of colour into the top of that comb, and running a circular pencil stroke over the bottom, along the bottom, just to put a little bit of depth there. I'm also just going to run it just under the face here. And just a sweep of the pencil. Sometimes a sweep of the pencil is all you can get in. And just using circular strokes to just put a little bit of depth right on the bottom of her wattle down here. Right on the bottom. Darken that down. I'm also just going to put a sweep of a pencil in and around these ears. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do for this face. Now you can carry on, you can keep building on it. I'm just going to leave mine like that for the pink. What I do need to do though is to go into the bister. I'm going to use the bister, but any light yellowy brown you've got, and I'm going to work around this ear and just sweep it in towards the face to get a little bit of brown right at the back. And I'm just going to put a little bit right under the face as well. There we go. And a little sweep around the eye. There we go. I'm going to leave mine like that. I think that's enough pencil in the face. You can obviously keep working on it, and if you're not quite there, then just stop the video and carry on putting your pencil down. But I'm going to leave my my face like that. I think that's quite nice for a fairly quick sketch. The first colour that I'm going to use on the feathers is the burnt ochre, and I'm going to bring that around just like before. I'm just going to use backwards and forwards pencil strokes, keeping the pencil on the paper. It's about the even pressure again. That's what I want to getting here the even pressure. I'm working around in the direction that I can see the feathers are coming around in. Keeping the pencil tipped over means that I'm putting the pencil down with a nice broad pencil stroke. And that's helping to get a nice even coverage. I'm going to bring it all the way around these feathers. Just putting a glaze in, following the direction of these black lines. These black lines are going to be quite useful for this one because it's showing us the direction of the feathers. I'm not pressing on hard. I've got the pencil tipped over. I'm holding it quite far back again. You can see that there's still light of the paper coming through. But hopefully you're getting a nice even coverage, and this is what we're practicing today. We're getting a nice even coverage. If you're finding that you're not getting that even coverage, and you'll get it a lot easier if you do hold your pencil quite far back and tip it over on its side. But if you're not getting that even coverage, go back to that piece of paper, that scrap piece of paper, and just have a bit of a practice. Or, of course, you know, you can print this as many times as you want and just keep practicing it. I actually thought the results were, this is the printer paper, and I actually thought the results were really, really nice for printer paper. Because we're not looking to get lots of layers on this one, you know, we're just putting that colour down. We're getting a couple of layers, but we're not putting lots and lots of layers down. So there'll be enough to, certainly on the printer paper that I've got, and this is really cheap printer paper. I only use this particular printer for just printing like line drawings. So it's a really cheap printer, and it is really, really cheap paper. So it works usually just to print the line drawings for me. But I found that, you know, these pencils just went down beautifully on this paper as well. When we come round here, this is a bit lighter, so I am just going to sort of follow those little dark guides. Keep that just a little bit lighter. I'm not looking to make this absolutely perfect. It's just a quick project, which I think, you know, I actually found it really quite nice just sitting there colouring this in. It's just like colouring it in. So I found it really nice to just sit there and colour this in. It'd be great to just sit if you've got a coffee break or a tea break. If you've only got, you know, half an hour or so to colour, to get some colour down. Nice little project for that. So I'm working around these, this leg at the bottom, but leaving this lighter bit again. Building this texture in, so you can see that I've got some lighter bits, I've got some darker bits, and that's already building the texture in. Now, the tail is where we are going to move to those sort of sweeping strokes, those curved strokes. So have a practice if you need to have a practice. I'm going to leave a little bit of light right by the top of the tail here, and then just sweep the pencil over and then work down this way. So what we're really doing is just adding glazes of colour, really. We're adding colour in a really light way so that we can see the paper, the colour of the paper. We can see any other colours coming through underneath. That's all we're doing. The structure of the bird's sort of already been done. It's already there. And I'm just letting the pencil just fade off on the edge. I'm not worried about sort of colouring up to the edge. We're not colouring up to the edge as such. We're just sort of letting that pencil drift off the edge a little bit. So that's the burnt ochre. I'm going to leave that like that for the minute. And I'm going to come in with I'm using Caput Morton Violet, whatever sort of dark red you've got. And you can see just down here, we've got this lovely red colour coming through. There's also a little bit on the back, and there's also a bit around here as well. So I'm going to go back to exactly the same colouring stroke. I'm going to put a little bit on top of the head as well, actually. I'm having to hold my pencil further over on the side. That's because this pencil is really quite short. So it's easy for me to hold it like this now and use the side of the pencil. But if the pencil was longer, I would use it in exactly the same way that I've just put the burnt ochre down. And I want to just really gently bring this darker red colour over the slightly darker area, the redder area. Again, I don't want to make the colour really dark. You can see that I've still got the burnt ochre coming through. I've still got the lighter colours coming through. I just want to get a glaze. We're just really working with glazes today, light glazes. And a glaze is just a really light layer of, it could be pencil, it could be paint. It's just a light layer that is quite transparent. And by that, I mean, it lets the other colours come through that are already down on the paper. So it doesn't completely take away, it doesn't cover up what's already down. There's a little bit darker around this side of the chicken. Got that red coming through, that red sort of follows down. Then we've got a lighter bit and then it goes into a darker bit around here. So I'm just going to leave this little patch in the middle. Bring this down, and again you can see I'm working backwards and forwards. I'm not taking my pencil off the paper. I'm not looking to draw individual feathers in. I'm just sort of looking to get a colour and a suggestion of colour down over what's already there. And I've already sort of put that feather structure in. It's quite, you know, it's quite sort of sketchy. The whole point of this is that it's quite sketchy. So it's just a suggestion of the feathers. That's all I've got in there. I'm going to bring this down towards the legs. Bringing it around over this darker bit, but still letting the other colours come through underneath. And by all means, turn your paper. I mean, I've got mine stuck down for the camera, but I am making it harder on myself. It would be much easier to just turn this paper around. So definitely turn your paper around. That will help. Let's bring a little bit of the dark colour or the Caput Mortuum violet colour around here. Let's just have a look. We've also got a bit that comes down side of this wing here. And we don't clip our chicken's wings. We always used to. It doesn't hurt the chicken to clip the wing. You just clip a few of the flight feathers, that sort of, you know, the ends of the flight feathers, so it doesn't hurt them at all. And it doesn't, you don't cut sort of that far back that they're not waterproof anymore. If you cut too far back on the wing, then they're not waterproof. And obviously they need their feathers to be waterproof. But if you just cut a few flight feathers, but you just cut them on the one side, you don't cut both sides. Cut them on the one side, which means they're not balanced. And then when they do try and fly, they just fly around in circles. But these girls can fly up onto walls and, you know, sides of the stables and the field shelter. They don't really go too far though. They're quite happy. There's enough here for them to, you know, find out in the field, so they don't really go that far. But they do get places that the poor cockerel can't reach, can't get to, because he's also too big to sort of fit under fences and things as well. He can't get over the fence, he can't get under the fence, so they do leave him quite a lot. Fortunately, we have a much older chicken. She's part of like a group of chickens that we had before. She's the only one that's left. She must be, oh, I don't know, about 7 or 8 at least now. She never really goes that far, so he hangs around with her. But these 3 are off. You'll follow them if you can, but they get everywhere. There we go. So we've got a little bit of the Caput Mortem Violet in there. I'm going to bring a little bit of more of an orange colour through. This is Sanguine, and I'm going to do exactly the same. So we're just doing the same process. This is why it's just a nice way to practice pencil strokes, really. I'm just going to bring the Sanguine, working around in the same direction, layering over the colours that have gone down. So I'll take the Sanguine over the burnt ochre. I'll also bring it over the Caput Mortem Violet. Just follow this down. Follow those black lines that are already there, and just leaving some of the paper a little bit lighter. Just going over some of the feathers or some of the areas just a couple more times with the pencil to just make it slightly darker. Let's bring the Sanguine around the side. So it's very much like the burnt ochre, but it's just got a little bit more orange in it. And you can see we're just layering up these colours now. We're mixing these colours. And she really does, these 3 chickens, they're all Lomans, but they are, I believe they're crossed with Rhode Island Reds, which is, I mean, she's a hybrid chicken. She's not a purebred chicken. She's a hybrid chicken. She's a Rhode Island Red crossed with, I can't remember what it was, what she's crossed with, but the Rhode Island Reds do have this lovely, deep, sort of reddy walnut colour feathers. And so they really do, when the light catches them, they really do have these lovely red feathers showing, these deep red chocolate feathers showing. I'm just going to bring a little bit of this Sanguine around here. But I think these have been some of the best chickens at laying eggs that I think we've ever had. Normally the chickens, because we don't use artificial light, we just keep them as naturally as possible. Usually the chickens don't lay through the winter because obviously it's, you know, they lose the light. They need the light to lay eggs, and you know, obviously it gets darker earlier and we don't have the unnatural light. So they don't lay, but these girls have laid all through the winter. I was quite surprised. Last couple of years. They're about 3, so I should think they will be slowing up now. We find that, you know, the first 3 years the chickens lay the eggs and then they stop laying eventually, and they're all pets anyway, so, you know. The other white one that we've got, the older one that I was just telling you about, she hasn't, in fact she was never a very good egg layer, but she's still going. She's still... and she's the boss as well, actually. She puts all the others in their place. But these are brilliant. They have been brilliant. So I'm just bringing this Sanguine around anywhere where I can see that I could just benefit from a little bit of the orange colour. Bringing that around there. Just using those backwards and forward strokes, sometimes curved, so sometimes letting the pencil sort of curve around to just get that natural curve, and holding the pencil quite far back so that I do get that natural curve. It's much easier, I find, to get the natural curve if I'm holding that pencil quite far back. Let's just get a little bit of colour down here as well. There's not too much orange, it goes a bit more pink around here, but I'm going to bring a little bit through. And it might be something that's quite difficult to start with, getting this even pressure all the time. But if you just sort of practice it on a piece of paper, it will come. It eventually is sort of click, and it just becomes muscle memory with your hand as to how much to press on, and definitely helps having this chisel tip on the end. But it will become second nature, really, to put the pencil down. And this is just more like a colouring exercise today, but this is exactly how I would put the pencil down, even when I'm working on the bigger projects as well. Not always keeping the pencil on the paper, but it's pretty much the same sort of technique. Sometimes I do flick the pencil off at the end, but on the whole, sometimes I use little scribble strokes, but on the whole, this is still how I would put the pencil down. So it is quite a nice little exercise to just practice, and then we can carry these skills over into the bigger portraits. I'm going to come in with the burnt sienna and just darken bits down again. So I'm just layering the pencil on top, starting at the top again. It's just a nice place to start. You can see that I'm really building up this lovely rusty brown colour. It's got that orange in it. I'm going to just bring a little bit of the burnt sienna around the side there. Let's just bring this down. A little bit darker just under the face here, bringing that down. And just breaking up this area with this burnt sienna, but still letting some of some of those other colours work through. Can bring it over this Caput Mortuum as well. When you mix the burnt sienna and the Caput Mortuum violet, it creates a really, really rich brown colour, quite a warm, rich brown colour. So the burnt sienna is quite a nice colour to use over this Caput Mortuum violet. And you can see I'm not really too worried about where I am putting the colours. I'm not worried about where I stop and start the colours. I know that I just want a nice darker band coming down at a diagonal around here and going up and under these feathers that are on the neck and the head. Still got this pencil tipped over on the side. And then we've got the darker bit coming down here. And then there's just a light bit in the middle. But I still want these lighter bits to come through. Can you see there's still lighter bits where some of those are even just raw paper? I haven't even put any pencil down there. And that's what I want. That's how I want to build up the texture. And that again is how I will build up the texture in all of the drawings, not just this one, not just because it's more of a colouring exercise. That's how I'll build up the texture, by letting, just sort of changing the values, changing the pencil. Just by letting some of that lighter paper come through, or some of the lighter colours that have gone down underneath. That's how we build the texture in. Leaving some of that paper a little bit lighter in areas. I'm just going to bring a sweep of colour around here. And I can let the burnt sienna run over the ink that's printed off. I mean, that's just sort of tip that towards a brown colour. Doesn't all have to stay black. Let's just bring this pencil around here. I'm just going to put a sweep of the pencil around here just to suggest that there's a little bit of feather texture in this space. And again, just letting this pencil just drift off at the end. I don't want there to be a really definite sort of stop on the end. Just let the little marks that are there from the pen and a little bit of colour, let that create the end. That's all we need. Now you can see that it hasn't actually taken that long to put this colour down. This is quite a decent size. It's about an A5 size drawing of the chicken. Hasn't taken that long to put the colour down. Now I know we've not put too many layers down, so that's obviously part of it. But also when we're adding the colour onto a drawing, keeping the pencil on the paper, so running that pencil backwards and forwards and keeping the pressure light as well, helps us to get that pencil down much faster than working with lots of tiny little pencil strokes, and certainly faster than if we're pressing on hard, because obviously there's a lot more friction on the paper. So it can be quite useful to sometimes just get that even coverage of really light pressure with not actually taking the pencil off the paper. You get quite a fast coverage down. I'm going to come back to the coral, and around here I'm going to bring a little bit of the pink through, because I can see that there's quite a bit of a pink colour coming through. So I'm just going to blend with the pink. Whatever pink you've got, if you've got quite a muted pink, that will work nicely. And I'm just going to run that over pretty much where I put the Caput Mortuum Violet. Just let that run over. And I'm just going to come back to my brown ochre 10% and just blend that light a little bit there, a little bit down there, not too much. And we're pretty much there with the body. I'm just blending over with this brown ochre. And then I'm going to bring in the walnut, and I'm just going to darken down little bits that might need to go just a little bit darker. Now where I've got some of the darker, like more heavy lines on the line drawing, that's obviously where it needs to go a bit darker. So that's where I'm going to think about putting the walnut and just darken down little bits here and little bits there. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to darken too much at all. Just darken little bits here and there. I'm going to just run this along the bottom of the face, and also just around this ear, just to darken down around that ear just a little bit. And that will probably pretty much do for the walnut. But if you feel that you need to just top yours up a little bit, then you know you can top yours up. There's obviously it's a little bit darker where we've got this band, so I can run a bit of the walnut over there. Don't really need it, to be honest. There's not much that I really need to use the walnut for, but I'm just bringing a little bit in here and there. There we go. And I think that will probably pretty much do for the chicken's feathers. I'm just running a little bit of the walnut around here just to break it. There was quite a light patch there, so I'm just breaking that up just a little bit. Darkening that down a little bit, and also around here. So I can let that walnut go over the fine liner, and just darken down right on the bottom down here. Get a little bit of depth. But any brown that you've got, it doesn't have to be this walnut colour, any brown you've got. I think I'm going to leave that like that. I could keep working on it. I mean, you know, you could keep adding a bit of colour, but I've got enough colour in there to so that I know what it is, so that I know what colour she is. This will end up going in my sketchbook. The only thing I've got left to do is to work down onto these legs. So I'm going to come back to my brown ochre 10%. I'm going to use that as a base layer for her legs, because she's got quite creamy pink, but very pale sort of creamy pink legs. So I'm going to use peachy legs really. So I'm going to use this as the base layer. Just going to get a nice even coverage. The depth is there again, the structure's there, so all I need to do is just put a little bit of colour in there. So that was the brown ochre 10%. I'm going to use the beige red, any pink that you've got, and I'm going to bring a little bit of pink in the bottom of the leg. So I'm going to use circular strokes because I find quite often that I can get a bit more control with the circular strokes. I've missed that bit out, haven't I? Let's put that bit in. I can get quite a bit of control with the circular strokes if I'm working in a tight space rather than colouring strokes. I find that if I use circular strokes, I can sort of control that pencil and put that pencil where I want it to go. Just getting a little bit of pink right on the bottom. Don't need to do too much, don't want to do too much. Let's just bring a bit of colour into her little claws, and it's just a sweep of the pencil, that's all we can do. Get a sweep of the pencil in there. And then this is the cold grey, and I will just run the cold grey pencil. This is cold grey 5, but any grey that you've got. I'm just going to run it down the back of her leg where she's got her little, you see her scales there, bring it around. And again, I'm still just using little circular strokes. I find that helps me with the control of the pencil. Bringing a sweep of it on the bottom. That's all I need to do for that leg. I'm going to do the same on this one. Bring it down. Sweep of the pencil on the bottom. And I'm going to use the pencil and add a little bit around her feet. Just concentrate the pencil a little bit more where there might be a bit of shadow. Again, keeping that pencil tipped over on the side. And that, I think, is going to pretty much be it with this little girl. The only thing that I do want to do is to just take a fine liner. I'm just using a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen, and I'm just going to darken down. You could just use a pencil, a black pencil, but I'm just going to darken down that eye just a little bit because the eye's just gone a little bit light, just a couple of dots of that. And that is, that's it, I think. I'm going to leave that like that. There's not a lot else that I need to do. Obviously you can put more colour down if you want to, but I'm really happy with that. A little sketch taken, I think, less than an hour. Just created a little sketch so that I've got something in my sketchbook, and it's just going to, it's more like a journal really, my sketchbook. It's just going to remind me of the time that the chickens were able to come out of lockdown. So I really hope that you've enjoyed drawing the little chicken with me, whether it's just something to pass half an hour whilst you're having a coffee, or whether it is actually practice at getting, you know, a nice even coverage down. Either way, really hope that you've enjoyed drawing Marlene with me. I will leave that there. If you've got any questions, then let me know. You see, I'm just fiddling with it now. I'm just going over and over it, but that's just because I'm enjoying drawing it. I'm going to leave her there. If you've got any questions, then let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.